There have been so many Shannara novels coming out since the late 1970s. Could we really need more? Yes. Join me today to find out how the new novel Galaphile proves this to be true. Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where a father and son talk about fantasy, science fiction, horror, and other nerdy things we enjoy. I'm Jim, the father of this show, and I'm here with you for a spoiler-light book review of Galaphile today, the newest book in the Shannara series. If you enjoy this, be sure to give me a like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so yet. Thank you to all of you who have already subscribed. So, Galaphile. That's the book I'm here to talk about, written by Terry Brooks. Publication date was just March of 2025. The genre, epic fantasy. I'm a huge fan of the Shannara series, having read every book published, all 30 novels, from The Sword of Shannara all the way back in 1977. No, I didn't read it in 1977. To The Last Druid, which came out in 2020 and was the end of the Shannara series. The series had high points and low points as you read through it all. Incredible narratives and some that were just acceptable ones. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed these creative, fun, and emotionally charged epic fantasy novels. Brooks was clear. The Last Druid was the end. He'd written 30 books over decades, and he's like, I could keep writing. This isn't like a clear ending, but it's sort of an end, and it was a place that he could just hang it up and say he was done, which he did. So it was quite a surprise when I get wind that he'd started writing Shannara again, and that Galaphile would be kicking off a new series, book one of what I believe is supposed to be a trilogy. And Brooks, well, he sort of stayed true to his intention. The Shannara story is done, as he's not continuing it farther into history. This is an untold tale of characters and events that we learned about over the course of the novels, but we never got to fully experience. We just read about them, were told about them, had experiences tied to them. My interest was piqued, for sure, and there was no way I was going to miss Galaphile, book one of the first Druids of Shannara. The setting of this tale is the Four Lands, a post-apocalyptic world that is roughly in the region where the United States Pacific Northwest is today. But this is in a far distant future where geography, technology, and even humanity has been considerably altered due to devastating past events. In this setting, we have the Four Lands, which is comprised of the Southlands, primarily human territory, the Eastlands, where the dwarves make their home, the Westlands, where the elves hold sway, and the Northlands, the harsh domain of the trolls. Of note, dwarves, trolls, and the gnomes, who also live more or less in the Eastlands, are all mutations of humans. But the elves, they're just the elves, as they've been all along from time out of mind. Also, in between all of these four lands, we have the Midlands, which is a wild, unclaimed, no man's land, roughly in the center of the map when you open up the fantasy book. Most of our tale here in Galaphile takes place in the Midlands, but parts of it involve travel and events in each of the four lands. This book occurs quite some time before the main storyline of the Shannara series begins, which started again 1977 with The Sword of Shannara. But these events are directly tied to why that book eventually happens. Here's my spoiler-light summary. Now, if you've already read Galaphile at this point, stick around for the end where I'll do a full spoil commentary. I'll give you plenty of warnings, so if you haven't read it, I won't surprise you. This is the story of a young orphaned elf, Galaphile, and how he comes to be driven by the mission to bring order and safety to the Four Lands. We get to follow him through life-changing experiences that shape him into the powerful person who will found the Druid Order, who will create the center of knowledge and order known as Paranor, and who will shift the history of the Four Lands forever, both for good and for bad. Galaphile is a name that all fans of the series know about, but we never truly knew him. He's just a mythic figure of Druidic history. Here, we meet the real person and get to know his motivations, his passions, his struggles, and his triumphs. We also get to see how other elements of the Four Lands and even other characters Shannara readers will recognize all have a hand in what Galaphile ends up making as his life purpose. For plot depth, it is not a simple thing to take a basic story that readers already think they know the gist of and fleshing it out into a full story with depth and nuance, mystery and surprises. But Terry Brooks does it here in a way that would have his young self stumbling through the writing of book one, that sort of Shannara book, shaking in awe. There are all sorts of great elements buried in this book, moving us toward final destinations that we think we know, but yet I'm sure there will be more surprises to come. That said, some may feel this book lacks depth, as it jumps pretty quickly through broad elements of Galaphile's life. I didn't feel that way. I found Brooks giving me just enough to tie together the major shaping events that lead Galaphile to become the leader he is destined to be. That totally worked for me. Now, Brooks has publicly stated that this one is the last Shannara book that he will write. He found that at his advanced age now, the writing process was just a bit too much for him. I'd say he felt that way because of the standard he's holding himself to, because this is just such a rich, fantastic book that feels like Brooks at his best. So way to go out on top, Terry. This series will be continued as Brooks has brought in a new author, Delilah S. Dawson. Working alongside him, he's going to speak into the plot, the direction the story is meant to take, but she now will be the writer. And it gives us hope that maybe we'll be having even more books beyond just finishing the first Druids of Shannara. For characters, well, the character work here is vintage Terry Brooks. Relatable people with vibrant personalities that you love following and are pained to see when they experience pain, tragedy, and loss. Galaphile is the primary protagonist, and following his growth from a young orphan to a magic user of great power, integrity, and responsibility, it's an awesome experience. Some of the terrific characters that play roles in this book I will not reveal here because it's spoiler-lite. You'll have to wait for the full spoil commentary for me to mention them. But key characters I can mention here that I really enjoyed include the love interest, Neriam, and the evil foe, the Spectre Tell, even though we don't get nearly enough information about this particular bad guy, leaving him a bit of a caricature, but perhaps that will get better in the next book. For writing style, Brooks again is just telling us a story. He's not trying to mystify or confuse us. He just wants us to enjoy a good story. And he truly wants to help you follow along. Thus, Galaphile is not a difficult read. It's comfort food, just a pleasure to sit down and enjoy. I go and read Malazan and it makes my brain hurt. It's great, but it's rough. You got to work. You do not have to work with Terry Brooks, but you're going to enjoy it. And for any fan of Shannara who has made it this far and now reads Galaphile, it's like the comfort of slipping back into well-worn shoes. The fit is great, and you're just at ease. For themes, I've got a few for you that I pull out of this book. The making of a leader would be one of them. Leadership is not for the faint of heart, and good leaders understand that the higher they rise, the more they give up. Sacrificing one's own preferences for the good of the mission and for the good of those you lead is what good leaders do. The struggle between order and chaos would be another theme. Chaos is easy. Order takes effort. Order will not naturally maintain. The desire to slip back to chaos seems hardwired. Galaphile begins with a world in chaos, and he wants more for himself, more for those around him, more for the world. He simply wants better. But the world resists. It's hard, even though everyone would actually be better off with a lot less chaos and a lot more order. Another theme is the importance of commitment to learning. I'm an educator. I relate to this one. Galaphile, he's out there trying to learn a lot as he goes along. And one of the things he learns is that to gain, you pay a cost. He learns that he's got to put in time and effort to become what he can be. There's no easy shortcut to become your best, to achieve your full potential. Nothing of true value comes easy. This is true in our world as well. But for those willing to pay the price, the reward can be high. The final theme I see in this is the role of relationships in making us who we become. We are not meant to be alone. Galaphile learns this in multiple ways. The people we bring into our inner circle, they enrich us. And we are able to give value back in return. We gain joy, comfort, safety from our circle. But we also risk worry, loss, and eventually grief. Yet, even from such pain, relationships grow us, and they become an incredible and significant part of everyone's growth journey. For warnings here out of this book, well, it's epic fantasy, so it's got some of the typical. There's battle, there's death, and this one including the death of children. So if that's too triggering, this won't be good for you. There is supernatural magic and some horror elements, including even the undead in this story. There are events connected to betrayal, possession, and torture. Now, that last one, it does not have a heavy on-screen element. This is no grim dark fantasy, but you know it takes place and you see its impact. Rating, my recommendation. Well, if you haven't read the Shannara series, do not waste your time on this book. It is completely built on the entire body of work ahead of it. But for those of you who, like me, have read and loved the 30-book Shannara series, this is a must-read. This is not fluff. This is not extra. You have to have this 5-star reading experience in your life. I will miss reading Terry Brooks, and I can only hope that his new writing partner will be able to evoke a similar tone and the same kind of sense of adventure that the Shannara books have delivered for years, and do again in Galaphile. All right, that's where you need to stop if you haven't read the book yet. Thanks for being with me here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
The Spoiler Room.
You're still here. That means you've read this book already, and I've got a few more things I can talk about now. First, I loved all the connections to the previous books that are packed into Galaphile, and all in what felt to be logical, reasonable, and delightful ways. Perhaps one of the first and biggest is the role of Cogline. Yes, he's here already and plays a very prominent role as Galaphile's primary magic instructor, the master to whom Galaphile becomes an apprentice. I knew from my previous readings that Cogline had a connection to the Druids, but I had no idea that his role went this far back, to the very beginning, the births of where we go. I had no idea that the part he played was so significant to getting things started. The Cogline we meet later in the books is different. An older, more deteriorated man, not so sharp or as connected to the world around him. This Cogline is incredible, yet the roots of the crotchety old man that we'll meet later are definitely present, as are the great cats. The King of the Silver River plays such a prominent role here. That was surprising to me, but it made sense. It wasn't something I realized or envisioned when thinking back to the beginning of these things, but I mean, come on, the task Galaphile is taking on is truly impossible in light of the state of the world at this time. It does make complete sense that he's going to need beyond mortal intervention. I mean, how else was he going to create the keep, Paranor, and give the Druid Order even a chance to get off the ground? Yeah, King of the Silver River. Made sense. I loved the way we got the rock trolls onto the side of the Druids. That was a true mystery to me. And to see that partnership begin the way it does in this book, delightful. The Ildatch. We get the Ildatch already. I did not see that coming. Maybe I should have. Maybe that was referenced back in earlier books. I mean, yes, we have the Ildatch in earlier books, but I did not know it would be part of Galaphile's story all the way in the beginning. To me, that felt like a master stroke to bring the Ildatch in, and I really appreciated it. Brona. Ugh, Brona. To see where this begins and knowing where it's going to go, that's just heartbreaking. All right, those are my spoiler commentary points. If you got anything to say about anything I put in this episode, please use the comment box, but write with care for those who have not read this yet. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I can't wait to see the rest of this series on the first Druids of Shannara. It was marvelous. I did not realize how much I missed Shannara until I got to read this book. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, put your comments in the comment box. Look in the show notes for other ways to connect with Zach and I. Thank you to all of our patrons on Patreon who support us every month. If you want to join us in that, check that out. The link is down in the show notes. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.